It is with pleasure to introduce today's speaker. Mr. Navid Mansourian has been a student of the Gathas and Zarathustra's message for 25 years. He currently serves on the California Zoroastrian Center's Public Relations Committee, helping people who'd like to learn more about Zoroastrian philosophy. Navid Jan, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Artemis John. It's an honor to work with you and serve on the California Zoroastrian Center's PR Public Relations Committee, and I'm honored to be here with you all today. I'm gonna share my screen in a moment and talk through a bit of a thought catalyst, if you will, for our conversation today, and then I would love to have us use that as a gateway to a discussion together, so that way we learn from each other as the message in the Gathas encourages us to do so. 1 second, let me get this up. All right. Does this look all right for everyone? Does it show up?
Yes.
Wonderful. All right. So yes, so as I mentioned, looking at today as a thought catalyst, this is part 3 of our Devotion to Wisdom series. And here we've been looking at exploring the divine attributes as a framework for realizing the divine and self-realization. Part 1 gave an overview of Masyasna per the Gathas, and part 2 dove deeper into Asha and the search for truth. And today we want to explore how this framework provides a modern and living philosophy for everyday life. And as I mentioned, we're all encouraged to think for ourselves and utilize our good mind to search for Asha. And that's the intention of this presentation. I'm sharing some thoughts and things that I have learned over my studies and our work together on the Public Relations Committee. And I'm hoping this serves as a thought catalyst for us on how we improve our existence. So with that, let's get started. So a brief historical recap. Some of these next few slides are from our previous talks, so I'm going to speak to them a little bit quickly, but just to set some context as a reminder. Zarathustra called his teachings Daina Vangui, meaning good conscience. And a little later, his disciples coined a really befitting term, Mazdayasna, meaning devotion to wisdom. His teachings are captured in 17 songs called the Gathas and an ancient Iranian language called the Avestan, or called Avestan, sorry. Linguistic evidence dates the Gathas to around 1700 BCE and to eastern Greater Iran, maybe near the Aral Sea. It's important to note that Avestan was not well understood until the 18th century, when linguists noticed it was very similar to Vedic Sanskrit and decoded it. Throughout history, Zarathustra's teachings were prevalent, but especially during the Achaemenid, Parthian, and Sassanid empires. And following the Arab Muslim invasion of the 7th century, Zoroastrians were persecuted almost to extinction. But thankfully, the Gathas of Zarathustra survived as part of the Avesta. So what is the Avesta? As a segue there, the Avesta is commonly referred to as the Zoroastrian holy book. And tradition says this was put into writing in very early times. The Achaemenids did have a writing system, so it's possible even as early as that. But we don't have evidence of it until the 5th century during the Sassanid Empire, when this Avesta we have was completed as put together. And if we look at the Avesta, it does include the teachings of Zarathustra at the center of the Yasna liturgy, and we'll talk about that on the next slide a little bit. But it's actually more accurate to refer to the Avesta as an encyclopedia of sorts. It represents a lot of different fields of study and knowledge and understanding, including a lot of commentary of that period. It's also important to note that at that point, when this was completed in the 5th century, this is over 2,000 years after Zarathustra's time, and Avestan was no longer spoken fluently nor well understood. Following the Arab Muslim invasion, many libraries and books were destroyed, including religious texts. It's estimated about 1/3 of the Avesta has survived. So there's likely commentary and other parts that we don't have for context today. But thankfully, the Gathas of Zarathustra were memorized and are intact. to give a little bit more context on the Gathas and where they fit in the Avesta. The Avesta was actually reshaped after the Muslim Arab invasion in the 10th century into roughly 6 books. There's the Yasna liturgy, and it has the Gathas and the Heptangaiti, which are hymns from Zarathustra's immediate disciples at its center in the old Avestan language. The rest of the Yasna has other parts of the liturgy in younger Avestan or newer language. Then we have festivals and lunisolar year information. We have Yash, which are poems and incantations, both pre and post Zarathustra. There is the Venadad, which is literally the law against the Devs, or the evil deities. And there's a lot of purification and regulations against pollution from the understanding of that time. And that's, again, important to place in context. And there's books about the priesthood and rituals and rites, and then there's varying fragments. So it's important to note where the Gathas fits in the Avesta overall. And we look at some of our traditions and things that have evolved over time. This is placing it in context as to what the source of those traditions may come from. What about the Khorda Avesta? As you may have heard of the Khorda Avesta. Khorda in Persian means smaller. So the smaller Avesta is actually a more recent digest of Avestan prayers with a lot of supplements in late Middle Persian. So it's actually a pretty unstandardized prayer book, can vary widely. But anywhere from 4,000 to 20,000 words were selected here. It's important, again, to note that only about 183 of those words come from the Gathas. So there's a lot of Middle Persian supplement here. All right, so moving into the teaser as we get into the meat of the presentation, now that we have that context from the past. People often debate whether the Gathas teach a religion or a philosophy. And I think it's important to notice that language, when we use it, carries a connotation. It carries the baggage, if you will, of our society and where we live. And here in California for us, I think religion is influenced by our understanding of the word through Abrahamic faiths and other major world religions that are common. And when we look at that, at least in my view, what I tend to feel is religion refers to faith in a superhuman power or God, generally who reveals their will and the path for salvation to an exclusive special prophet. The focus here is more on obedience to commandments, to dogma, to unquestionable authority, and belief in static explanations about what has passed and what will happen. This is heavily tied to other religious ideas around predeterminism, prophecies, and being saved externally. In contrast, philosophy literally means love of wisdom. Strikingly similar, if you ask me, to Mazda Yasna, meaning devotion or worship or love of wisdom as well. Philosophy is the pursuit of wisdom and seeking to understand the nature of knowledge, our reality and existence, but through human theory and thinking, as opposed to faith in revelations that were handed to us. We're encouraged in philosophy to think and have a critical mind. So let's hold that thought as we look deeper into Zarathustra's teachings, and we'll talk about it more together. All right, and this is another recap slide from part 1. I'm going to speak to it briefly, just to give us a sense. So in the Gathas, I think Zarathustra teaches us a practical spiritual philosophy focused on improving existence through self-realization and realization of the divine. The concept of the divine is very unique to Zarathustra's view. And the way we understand the divine is through the divine aspects or divine attributes. Amesha Spenta is one framing in Avestan. And if we look at this, our understanding of the divine is that the divine is wholly good, is beneficial, is a friend and an ally for us. And the pivotal, I guess, or maybe foundational divine attribute is Asha, which is the ideal, perfect, and wholly good order of existence. This is the way to the divine and the way of the divine. Central to the framework here of the divine attributes is that human beings' role is to be free to choose and learn from our choices. And as a result, we grow spiritually. And as we grow and we realize Asha through our thoughts, words, and deeds, this gets us closer to realizing wisdom. And this is an important aspect because all of the divine aspects are attainable by us, is what we see in the Gathas, right? As we seek to realize truth, which is Asha, and wisdom, the divine Mazda, our mortal existence is the matrix for the spiritual growth. We go through, we experience things, and as we learn from cause and effect, both individually and collectively, we grow. And as we grow, we eventually can get to the point of realizing truth and realizing Asha and wisdom. And to do this, we must heal all of existence. We can't reject life. We can't do this in isolation. We actually need to actively engage, and we need to make our existence better. This will lead to us having the realization that humankind and the divine are parts of the same whole. And by progressing all existence to be entirely good and aligned with Asha, we become completely whole and transcend mortal existence as we understand it, reaching an enlightened state of being. When Zarathustra uses a beautiful metaphor that I love, which he calls it the endless lights, right? Light expressing the ability to see and make the right decisions. So this is a quick recap of part one. Another simpler way of looking at this is, simply a learning cycle for our lives, right? Zarathustra is saying, and this is one of the reasons why I believe it is timeless. It's basically a learning cycle for our growth, saying that throughout our lives, we are confronted by choices, that we should use our minds and hearts to search for the truth, for what is right and good in all aspects of reality and for all existence. Then choose it freely with each thought, word, and action, and engage the world, not rejecting it, thereby perfecting our world and ourselves together until we become one with the divine, until we become part of the endless lights we just met. I love this framing from Gina McIntyre, borrowing from her. It's just really clear to me how fresh and modern this framework is in our everyday lives. So now we get into the meat of our conversation. How does the Gathas teach an ever-fresh way of life? I believe this is by encouraging us to always seek Asha, what is correct, true, and righteous for all existence. This search for truth is incremental, it's dynamic, it's ever fresh. Asha is what we seek in the path to wisdom. And to be aligned with truth, we must consult the most current understanding of our day and age. So it is incremental, it is dynamic again, to find out what is true in both existences of mind and matter for all the living. And I do want to mention this with respect that it is just, contrary to the other religious views of our day and age, right? We're not looking to accept dogma or static commandments. This life is not a test of faith per se, but the life of a Zoroastrian is to always question, to reflect, to learn, to grow. It's continuously to work towards and realize Asha together. Asha is incremental, as I mentioned, and the more we seek it and the more we align ourselves with it, the more we understand and realize it. And this ongoing search means our understanding of Asha will evolve based on our experiences, and this keeps Mazdayasana ever fresh and current. So in a way, truth becomes our teacher, or Asha becomes our teacher. It is the path to wisdom. And taking a step back again, as a recap from part two, when we talked a deep dive into Asha, Asha literally means what fits, but it's as in the correct truth of how things fit and are ordered in a system. And in this case, the ideal existence of both mind and matter. So we often translate it as truth or righteousness. You'll see it in various Gatha verses as either or, but it's important to note that no one word fully encompasses its meaning. And we want to keep that in mind. And this is why, again, we encourage really going back to part two, if you have a chance, and seeing that deep dive into what Asha entails. So, and as we said, Zarathustra emphasizes this search for truth as our way and our path to realize the divine. So how do we know this? I'm looking at, throughout this presentation, I want to share more of the Gathas with you, right? So we can kind of see these meanings. So starting with Yasna 28:4, we see very clearly, Zarathustra says, I shall take the awakened soul to the exalted abode with the help of the good mind, knowing the blissful rewards of the wise Lord for righteous deeds. As long as I have power and am able, I shall teach all to seek for truth and right. So here that's Asha. So we see very clearly this is the thing, as long as we have able. It's not a one and done situation where we are just arriving at a destination, we've received a revelation and now we need to be obedient to it, right? We are looking at constantly seeking and teaching and looking for Asha. Zarathustra also says he was instructed in Asha, which is why I say, learning from truth like a teacher here. So this ongoing search for truth as a teacher, the desire to comprehend it, and is then emphasized as a path to self-realization and the path to wisdom, to the divine. And we see this in Yasna 43:12. Zarathustra says here, and when thou didst instruct me in righteousness, this is Asha again, thy command to go forth and proclaim thy revelation was not unheeded. Even before the sublime enlightenment coming with thy messenger Srausha, bringing us the destiny of our appropriate rewards. So again, we see this is what we're seeking. This is how we're studying. It's through Asha. So how do we learn from Asha then? How do we learn from truth? How does this work exactly? And thinking about, what Zarathustra tells us in the Gathas is that Asha is in the existences of both mind and matter. There's no divide, amazingly to me, and very modern and fresh, between science and spirituality. We're not having this like tug of war here. Physical truths and spiritual truths are part of a seamless whole, the true correct order of existence, which is Asha. So rather than giving us a list of static commandments that you should do this or you shouldn't do that, we are encouraged to look at both existence of mind and matter and study it and look at what is right. And we do get attributes, we do get clues throughout the Gathas about what is Asha. And in the physical world, we learn from studying how the universe is ordered. This is basically science and factual truths. So what is accurate about our physical existence is things like physics, chemistry, biology, astronomy, constantly making new discoveries with science. This is exactly what we're encouraged to go and do, right? And this is how we learn together and advance society. We also know that this natural way of the physical world is harmonious. It has a balance to it. It is evolving, again, dynamic, refreshing. And it is the universal law of physical existence. Then we look at our existence of mind, spirit, and heart. This is where we're learning through our experiences. This is thanks to free will and cause and effect, we will learn through the results of our actions. And we do have, again, attributes that helps us understand what is Asha, because it's not just good relative to people. There are ideas behind what good means, what Asha means. So Asha is righteousness. It is the right, beneficial thing to do. But the key part here is for all existence, not just what's good for Navid, not what's just good for any one other person, but what's good for all existence. Asha is the best good. It is loving, beneficent. It is the way of wisdom and the way to wisdom. Asha is happiness. It is generating peace and tranquility. It is how we perfect and heal and improve all existence. And we look in the Gathas and see that Asha is just, and not in the way where it's retribution or an eye for an eye kind of justice, but it's through experiential learning. It results in our growth. We become more compassionate. We become more understanding. And then the final way we learn sometimes is in contrast, right? Which is why I'm mentioning some contrasts here and there. But we do hear that Asha is the opposite of fury, cruelty, violence, destruction, and deceit. And just a quick note, I put in here in the asterisk, but Dina McIntyre has an outstanding article on Asha on her website, gathasofzarathustra.com. Highly recommend taking a look at it. It has all the yasna verses for where these ideas and attributes come from and a much deeper dive. But I wanted to kind of give this as part of our conversation today. So now we want to look at understanding that Asha is, the search for Asha is what keeps us ever fresh and keeps us constantly improving. I want to look at some modern issues and see if these are applicable. And again, look at the Gathas and see what it's saying. And this is amazing to me. Again, every time I read through these things, it just surprises me how 4,000 years ago we have a message, almost 4,000 years ago, that is still so relevant and so applicable to today for us. So Asha includes caring for our environment and healing all of existence. And we know this because the words used are not just healing or helping humankind. It's not saying that the world was created for us, for our enjoyment, for our benefit, right? It's saying that we are here to bring joy to all existence. The very beginning of the Gathas in Yasna 28:1, you see this verse where Zarathustra says, "In humble adoration with hands outstretched, I pray to thee, O Mazda. First of all, through thy Holy Spirit, vouchsafe to me all righteousness of action, all wisdom of the good mind, that I may thereby bring joy to the soul of creation." So we're using, through Asha, through the divine aspects, through the good mind, what are we doing? It's not to be rewarded or to avoid some punishment. It's to bring joy to the soul of creation. This is pretty profound to me. Then we look at Yasna 39, where it says, "So may we be like those making the world progress towards perfection. May Mazda and the divine spirits help us and guide our efforts through truth. For a thinking man is where wisdom is at home." Right? So again, we're making the world progress, not for mankind or humankind or people, right? But the world progress. And finally, 34:15, Yasna 34:15 says, "Make known to me, O Mazda, the best teachings and actions, actuated by the good mind and inspired by truth," Asha again, "as I express my aspiration in my songs of veneration for thee. By thy sovereign authority do thy regenerate this existence, through thy gracious will, O Ahura." So again, we're regenerating existence, not just humankind. And this stands clearly to me. If we're regenerating, we're improving, we're growing, we have to think beyond ourselves and take care of our environment and all the living. So next we look at notions of social justice and fighting oppression. And when we zoom into humankind, it's not just about those like us. It's not just about those from a certain tribe or a certain background, or those in power, or those who have money or those who don't, right? And we are here to fight oppression and injustice in all its forms. And this is clear in especially Yasna 32, where Zarathustra bravely stood out against the established tyrannies of his time, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And we see this in the Yatha Ahu prayer, which a lot of you are probably familiar with, where the goal here, right, is to help the needful, help people who need it, right? Not just people who already have. So Yasna 32:15 says, "Thy message shall undo the work of the evildoers. No more shall the wicked Kavis, rulers, and the Karpans, priests, rule over the lives of the righteous, but the good shall be escorted through perfection and immortality to the realm of the best mental existence." So the Kavis and Karpans were rulers and priests that worked together in Zarathustra's time, and they were manipulating and dominating and exploiting the people. And he speaks out against this wrong, and there are severe consequences. This is not an easy thing to do. He gets ostracized for it. He goes through a lot of conflict. But again, the point here is that we need to do the right thing, not because it's easy and not because it benefits us maybe necessarily at first, but it is the right thing to do. We see this followed up in Yasna 33:3. "He who is most good to the righteous, be he a noble or a peasant or a dependent, he who zealously makes the good living creation flourish, he shall come to dwell with truth," with Asha, "in the realm of the good mind." So again, we see through Asha, through truth, and from a variety of backgrounds, noble, peasant, or dependent, making the good living creation flourish. And I think this is what stands out to me here in this one as well, is it's not just we exist and we are tolerant of others, but we are here to make zealously all the living creation flourish, right? Thrive, essentially, which is amazingly clear to me. And then we look at Yasna 44:2. This one is even clearer in my mind. What is the best source? What is the source of the best existence? How shall one who seeks it receive the blessed recompense? Surely such a holy one, through righteousness, Asha, is a healer of existence, beneficent unto all, a genuine friend, O Mazda. And I think this is so clear to me, right? So you cannot help just some people. You're beneficent unto all, and a genuine friend. And a genuine friend helps others because just to help them, right? There's not looking for a transactional gain of some sorts. Very clear and very powerful in my mind. Which dovetails really nicely to the next point, in that we must help others and work together to realize Asha. What the Gathas teach us is that we are all connected, and we cannot realize Asha wholly, entirely, by only helping ourselves. So we must help others to progress. And this cannot be through force or through violence. We have to help people realize truth and learn and grow through their own free will. And this is what spreads Ushta, or radiant happiness, and makes us eventually whole and complete, which is one of the divine aspects, Haurvata. Yasna 43 highlights this, especially in the beginning. I have two excerpts, 43.1 and 43.3, that also very clearly highlight these points as well. Happiness be the lot of him who works for the happiness of others. May the Lord grant him health and endurance for the effort to uphold truth. I beseech these very gifts from thee. Mayest thou, through Almighty, the spirit of right-mindedness, bless me with the perfection of a life guided by the good mind. So again, we're looking at upholding Asha, truth, and all the other divine aspects coming together for working for the happiness of others, not just ourselves. And 43.3 makes it clear that he who teaches others the righteous path of truth and happiness, both in the material world and also the spiritual, which is the path leading to thy abode, O Ahura, he attains an end better than good, a generous and enlightened helper, a faithful worthy of thee is he, O Mazda. I love, this is one of my favorites, and I think for multiple reasons. One, you're getting a lot of input about what is the nature of the divine in Zarathustra's mind, and then how we are aligning ourselves, and how do we become more aligned with the divine? How do we become part of the divine? It's through being a generous and enlightened helper, helping all in both material world and the spiritual world, and through teaching and taking care of. That is how we realize the divine. So this leads us to another key point here, in that improving the world, again, in contrast to maybe other belief systems, we're not waiting on an external savior here. Improving the world is the work of each one of us. We are our own saviors. And Zarathustra clearly teaches a practical spiritual philosophy which encourages us to improve our existence right here and now. We're not just holding time or waiting through a test for this lifetime to be rewarded later. We're not waiting on a transactional promise of some sorts, like if you obey these commandments, then you'll be rewarded later. The Gathas are telling us that we are responsible for improving this existence, that we partner with wisdom, we work with wisdom to heal all of existence and thus heal ourselves. And we do this, again, through the foundational concept of Asha, which is righteousness and truth for all existence, embodying it individually and then collectively until we realize it completely, which results in us becoming one with the divine and part of the endless lights. Yasna 48:12 makes this clear. We see that Zarathustra says, such are the saviors, the Saushans, so plural, of the earth, who inspired by the good mind cause betterment, by actions in tune with the laws of truth and justice, Asha. They are indeed appointed by thee to dispel violence, O Mazda. So again, the point emphasized here for me is that through Asha, we cause betterment and we dispel violence. Like there's so many nuggets in these simple lines that are very deep, actually. And then we see that this is a plural activity. This is not waiting for just one chosen person, but it's the work of each one of us to do and work together. So in conclusion, before we start moving towards our discussion, thank you all for hearing my thoughts as, again, a thought catalyst here. I think the Gathas teaches us a practical spiritual philosophy focused on improving our everyday lives, but through self-realization and realization of Zarathustra's concept of the divine, which is not, I think, the same as our modern, kind of major religions of the world. The Avesta may contain some dogmatic lists of do's and don'ts. So you may have seen that or heard of some things from the Venedat or purification rites or other rituals or requirements, but we must place them in their appropriate context. These were the interpretations of Sassanid priests 2,000 years after Zarathustra, when Avestan wasn't well understood. They likely were well-intentioned, but it's informative to look at this information and understand the worldview and acknowledge we might be missing significant amounts of commentary. But what matters is that we have the Gathas intact today and we understand that message. And we understand the language and the relevant context much better today than that time. So the way I look to Mazdyasna, to Zarathustra's teachings, is the Gathas are the core. And we can look at outer layers of traditions, whether they're new traditions or old traditions, right? Zarathustra is encouraging us to be modern and ever fresh. If they are compatible with this core, then that is wonderful. And that's a great thing. Again, making this a living belief system and a living philosophy. Each individual can then choose to accept or reject based on their understanding of Asha and the Gathas. The beauty of Mazdyasna is that there is no dogma, there is no orthodoxy. In my view, it is a system and way of life that enables us to grow ourselves and improve all existence, realizing truth and subsequently the divine. Thus, I see this as a framework, and I see it more as a modern and living philosophy for everyday life, ever fresh, no matter what day and age, and constantly growing based on our understandings. So thank you all so much. I'd like to close with a fitting prayer and mantra, one of my favorites, called Hamazur Bim. This highlights how we must work together and unite in strength and righteousness and through Asha to improve our existence. Please feel free to read along with me, and we can combine our energies, our mental strengths, and bring them together. And then afterwards, we'll get into a discussion together. But may we be joined in strength. May we stand united through righteousness. May we join hands in doing more good deeds. May we unite with good people. May we be far from wrong and wrongdoers. May we be joined hand in hand with all the faithful and all the good people of the world. Thank you all. One more time, I just want to acknowledge all the amazing scholars that have helped put together this series through their life's works that I've been pulling together, different pieces. And like Artemis mentioned, the public relations website is a great resource. It links to these presentations and all the other subsequent links here. Thank you all so much, and wishing you all a radiant happiness.